Hi, I'm Wells Hanley, and welcome to I Wrote This Song For You, a podcast where I share songs I wrote for people I know, or for people I don't know. The truth is, I'll write a song for anyone who evokes a feeling in me that I have no way of responding to other than to write a song for them. So let's meet today's guest and hear their song. So I've been saying at the beginning of every episode, in the intro, that I write songs for people I know and for people I don't know. But up until today, I've only shared songs that I've written for my friends. Today, I'll be sharing a song that I wrote for Topher. And when I wrote this song for Topher, I didn't know him at all. Topher is an accomplished Shakespearean actor, and I've seen him in a number of productions at the American Shakespeare Center in Stanton, Virginia, where he used to be a member of the company. In June of 2020, when protests were erupting around the country just weeks after the murder of George Floyd, the American Shakespeare Center put out a video of Topher and his friend Constance talking about the kinds of challenges and injustices they face on a regular basis as Black Americans. The emotion in that video was so raw, and Topher and Constance were speaking so openly and freely and painfully about their experiences and feelings. There's a moment in the video where Topher is talking about one day in daycare where he first was made fun of for the color of his skin. And when he talks about that moment, he begins to cry. And that's the moment when I began hearing the song that I'll be sharing with Topher at the end of today's episode. You can find a link to that video in today's show notes. Also, please be aware that today's episode will include some racial and LGBTQ slurs, which are brought up through the retelling of the traumatic experiences of a biracial gay man. So, Topher, one of the things that you mentioned in the video that I found so moving was about how you feel at times ostracized by both the white community and the Black community, as well as the gay community and the Christian community. Being a biracial gay person who identifies as Christian, that sounds like a real challenge.
I always struggle with this idea of identity, especially when it comes to like being Black, because I am Black, but I'm also biracial. Mm-hmm. So I've ran into this problem a lot of saying like I'm Black and people being like, but why is your like primarily family members white? And I'm like, well, then I'm brown. So yeah, right. I've always run into that. That's always been my like triangle. Eventually, I want to do like a TED talk called Too White to Be Black, Too Black to Be Gay, Too Gay to Be Christian, because those are the things I just have dealt with a lot in my life. Mm-hmm.
So the story that you told about what happened to you in daycare, that was the thing that got me started writing a song for you. And I think you said that your mom told you about that years later.
She was like, yeah, I'll never forget the time you came home crying because the other kids made fun of you for being brown. And constantly we had to like fight that battle of you being a beautiful kid, you know, no matter what color your skin was. So yeah, I think that day I got very emotional because it was a moment of self-reflection. And it was a moment of realization too, of like, oh, like I used to cry about this shit. You know, I used to want to be white so bad.
Being an actor, I'm sure you're used to being emotional in front of people, but I'm guessing that it's different when you're talking about your own life and it's your own stories and it's your own feelings that you're expressing. I'm curious to know what it's been like for you to share your stories so publicly.
In this time when it is super important, being Black and being gay and whatever it is you are, like if you're trans, if you are Hispanic, if you're Asian, if you're having a voice as a minority of some sort, for me is something very new. And speaking my mind about stuff is something very new because I was never groomed to do that. I'm always so afraid of the repercussions of speaking my voice because of who I am. Recently, I have been talking to my mom and grandmother and having open discussions about like, hey, something I never told you is that like I was called a nigger and I was called a faggot multiple times in my life. And it was just something that I kind of had to brush off my shoulder. And they're like, really? You've been called that? I was like, yes. There are times where I, even being a 6'3" black guy, like feel very uneasy walking down the street at night by myself. People like me are constantly groomed to apologize for who we are. If I'm in a grocery store and I'm walking around and someone's in my way, it's something I've been trying to break. I always say, excuse me, even if they're in my way. I'm like, oh, excuse me. And I realize that's not like a courtesy thing, because not a lot of people do it, especially like white people. It's someone like me who does it so that I can wear off people saying like, no, it's okay. I'm not a threat to you.
Right.
So, it's things like that. And I think, like I said, going back to it all, finding this voice and speaking so freely about my experiences is something that I am very new to. And quite frankly, I'm a bit hesitant and afraid to speak up. I'm a very open person, but like when it comes to job security, when it comes to interviews for jobs, whatever, we have a professional demeanor and a professional mask we always wear, but I feel like mine has a thicker layer than most people do, because I don't want to seem intimidating. I don't want to seem threatening. I don't want to seem too gay. I don't want to seem too black. I don't want to seem too, I want to seem authentic. And I think that's something we all struggle with, but it's something that I myself have a really hard time dealing with. And that story with me crying about being brown is something that I think the inner child in me is still trying to like overcome. I'm scared. I'm scared constantly. You don't see it in the news as much anymore of like the murders that continue happening of Black people. I think that's something that even on social media, I've seen like a downfall of like, and it might be the holidays and people are like, I just want to forget about, the terrors of this world and things like that. For me, I deal with that with or without the holidays. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the holidays, the election, or COVID, or whatever the distraction is at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There was a second story that you told in the video about going on a date and texting with the guy who you were going to meet. Would you tell that story?
I was on my way to this date, and the guy had texted me, and he asked me what my race was. And I was literally on my way to this date. Had the address in, was a good more than halfway there. And I said, guess. And he started guessing, are you Latinx or Native American, Cuban, whatever it was. I said, no. I said, I'm mixed. He said, what are you mixed with? I said, one of them's white. And he said, what's the other? And I said, it's black. And then he told me to stop the car, to turn around and go home because he wasn't into black men. And I went home and I cried about it a little bit. I remember telling my best friend and roommate at the time, Brandon, and he's also biracial. And that's when him and I started having these conversations about like the unfairness in the gay community when it comes to being the other. You're either seen as an exotic person or you're someone they're not interested in, because there's racism within the gay community as well. I hate to break it to you, but there is, and it's sad. And there's, homophobia in the black community, in the white community. There's homophobia in the Christian community. So coming to terms with my own faith has been a challenge, because for a long time I thought that God didn't love me because of who I was and living my truth.
In terms of this issue of finding your voice, using your voice, I imagine that growing up, there were obvious reasons why in some cases, like for your personal safety, you felt like you had to keep your mouth shut. I'm wondering about some of the more subtle situations where you felt like you couldn't speak up for yourself.
I think I never used my voice because I had friends and I didn't want to lose my friends. So I would let my friends say the N-word in front of me. I would let my friends crack like black jokes that would make me feel uncomfortable. And I would let my friends crack gay jokes that made me feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't like, jokes about black guys being killed. I don't like jokes about HIV or AIDS. It's kind of things like that, I would allow back in the day because people were like, oh, Topher, you're so cool. You're not like some of these gay black guys who are just either one, wanting to like flirt with me, which like, I don't know why every straight guy thinks that. And two, I was always the token cool gay guy. Like, I look back on my junior year of high school and I remember allowing, because we were joking about it and like slavery and shit, one of my friend's parents to say nigger faggot in front of me. And I was like, yeah, nigger, like, and God, how old was I? Like 16, 17. And I look back on that experience and I'm like, these are adults. They shouldn't be joking about that in front of that should have never been allowed, Right. And I don't blame anyone but myself sometimes because I'm like, I should have drawn the line. And I knew I could have done that. But when I was young, I was in someone else's home. Right. And at that time, my voice really, truly did not matter because if I did say something, I would be seen as the angry black gay guy, or like, there's the story of like angry black woman because she speaks up or she has passion. That's not true. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's such a terrible bind to be in. And so many instances where you didn't speak up, what are the things you want to say now? Or what are some of the things you want to say now?
There are a lot of things I want to say. There's been many things that have been said to me or done to me that I wish I could say and teach a lesson and kind of correct it. But at the same time, standing up for myself, like that's a big deal for me of like, not only just saying what I feel, but like also standing up for myself because I do that so little. I guess when I think a better question for me would be like, who do you do it for? And I think that's myself. And I think that that's something that took me a long time to come to the conclusion of like, when I speak my mind, I do it for the scared little brown gay boy inside me who is still there. And I'm fighting for him and I'm fighting for the other people like me. And luckily we live in a world that's more accepting now than it was then. And I truly admire those who came before me and I respect them in both communities because without them, I wouldn't even be where I am today. Mm-hmm. And so when I think of what I want to say, it's an endless amount of things. But when I think of who I'm doing it for, it always comes back to me. And I know that sounds selfish, but I've never been allowed to be selfish when it comes to how I feel. And I think that that's a very powerful lesson I'm starting to learn in my later 20s.
And I don't think it's selfish. I think this falls under the oxygen rule. On the airplane, when the oxygen masks come down, they say, put on your own mask before you assist the person next to you.
Yeah.
I think you have to make sure you're okay first.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's the saying because I love RuPaul, and he says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? And that's one of my favorite quotes, and it's the one that he says all the time. So it's like doesn't mean much now, but I remember hearing it for the first time and being like, wow, that is true. Mm-hmm. I've always been the kind that, up until recently, like I said, would always take care of others' feelings before I took care of mine.
I'm imagining that when you and Constance made that video, part of it was just that it was cathartic to get your feelings out, to get your stories out. But I'm wondering, beyond just the satisfaction of speaking your mind, what do you hope would come out of a video like that? Like, if someone felt moved by your story, how would you want to see them respond?
I am a firm believer that actions speak louder than words. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's one of the biggest things for my white counterparts these days and my cis white counterparts is like, you can say you're so sorry and that it sucks. But for me, it's like your action is your activism. Mm-hmm. Your words are just words. I grew up with a lot of false promises and a lot of like, I wouldn't say lies, but I grew up with a lot of disappointment. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think, the adult version of me can recognize disappointment, and I don't set my hopes up too high, and I don't try to get caught up in promises. But there is the kid side of me, because we always still have that inside of us, that is really hurt. And I think I'm dealing with that right now versus like the adult side, because the adult side, I'm like, oh, of course, promises can be broken and things can happen, right? But there's the kid side of me that's like disappointed. It's like, it's the one that's like sitting on the front porch because, they're waiting for someone, their mother figure, father figure to like play ball with them. Like, you know what I mean? And they never show up.
After my first conversation with Topher, which you just listened to, I took some time to finish writing his song and to get it recorded. And when I met with Topher again months later to play his song for him, I found him in a very different headspace.
I have gone through some changes since the last time we spoke. I'm totally okay with saying this and it being recorded, but I've dealt with really bad depression a lot of my life. And so when I had attempted to take my own life on September 10th of 2020, I was at such a low in my life that it was almost as if I didn't know who I was anymore. And I forgot my self-worth. I didn't know what self-worth was. I didn't value myself because I didn't feel valued. And it was tough. And like, in the video that you had seen, my best friend Constance was in it, right? Mm-hmm. And we've been through a lot together, a lot. She is like my sister. And she's really helped me a lot this year when it comes to my mental health, when it comes to my emotional well-being, when it comes to my physical safety. And when you have people like that who empower you and acknowledge you and see you and honor you, it makes using your voice less scary.
Yeah.
But I've been very vocal lately. I've been very vocal. And I'm proud of myself. And if people want to call me a diva, so be it. I think that God gives us many things, and one of them is a voice. And that is one of the things in my life that I have used the least. And I plan on making up for lost time.
Well, I'll say that your telling your story has had a big impact on me, both in the video and talking to you today. And in the spirit of things continuing to improve, Topher, I wrote this song for you.
I became in a blaze of light. I landed here after a long, long flight. And now I'm ready to be loved. I am ready to be loved. I went the way of the American child. I played the game when I was sad, I smiled. But now I'm ready to be loved. I am ready to be loved. When the rain goes, there ought to be a rainbow somewhere. After the pain I've known, I want to believe you could begin to care. And that's a heavy hope to bear. I felt so frightened that I made myself small. I said I was sorry when I was not sorry at all. And I am ready to be loved. I am ready to be loved. I've been bossed and double-crossed, and I've been tossed around. I've been set up and I've been let down, and now I'm ready to rise above. I am ready to be loved. I have pretended that I was not offended by your jokes on me. When the laughter had ended, I searched your eyes, but found no empathy, and that's a lonely way to be. Here I stand before you now. I've been mistreated, I've been beaten down, and now I'm ready to be loved. I am ready to be loved. Oh, I am ready to be loved. I am ready to be loved.
That was beautiful. That was, wow. And it like hit me in like really interesting ways, because at first I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, I'm better now. And it's, I don't know. I can't even, it's indescribable how lovely and beautiful that song was to hear. And painful in ways to know that I went through that pain and sometimes still do. It's kind of sad. But wow. And kudos to who sang that song. He's got a voice.
That's Darius de Haas, who is a singer in New York, and he's a tremendously beautiful soul. And he watched your video and was really moved by it. And he's also biracial and gay, which I did not.
You shut up. That is fantastic. So he's biracial and gay?
Yeah. And also he's an actor, and he's done Shakespeare, all of which I did not put together until after I realized he was the right person to sing your song.
That's fab. Yeah, no, and it's so interesting too, because we're both artists. Biracial, gay, and artists.
I know. It's truly amazing.
Just incredible, Wells. You are so talented.
You know, I've seen that video so many times, and I know when I watch it the next time, after what you said about your friendship with Constance, I know I'm going to be, you know, how comfortable you two were together is going to be the main thing, more than the pain and more than the suffering that you two are talking about. I think it's the beauty of the friendship is what's going to come across to me next time.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love that girl. I mean, she's been there for me so many times. And she is one of the most beautiful people I've ever met. And God really did bless me. She actually brought me back to God in many ways. I just don't know what I'd do without her. She really is a friend for life. To have a friend like that in this world is such a gift. It's such a gift, and it's such a blessing. And I look up to her a lot, even though she's way shorter than I am. So she's 4'11". What can I say? I'm 6'3".
Oh man, that's good.
You know, I'll be turning 30 next year. And I look back on my like early 20s and my teenage years and my preteen years, and I go, you know, Topher, you are making that little boy and that preteen who struggled with suicide multiple times, and that 25-year-old, you're making them all so proud. And that's something that I will never forget and will keep reminding myself day by day. So, yeah. I mean, there's not much to say when it comes to being black and gay. I'm still that. So
no change on that front.
No change on that.
You've been listening to I Wrote This Song For You. It's clear when a song rises up in me that it's meant to be given away as a gift. And sharing these conversations and songs with you is work that I believe in and am committed to continuing. But I need your help to keep it going. For as little as $5 a month, you can join the I Wrote This Song For You community on Patreon, where you'll have access to exclusive content and other rewards. Simply click the link Be a Patron, either in the show notes of this episode or on my website, iwrotethissongforyou.com. You'll be redirected to Patreon, which is a secure site where people like you who believe in projects like mine can lend your support. Today's song, Ready to Be Loved, was written and performed by me, Wells Hanley, and was sung by Darius de Haas. To submit your story to be considered for a future episode, simply fill out the form on the contact page of my website at iwrotethissongforyou.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.